What's up, everybody? This is Burn,
And this is Rye.
and you are listening to the Bodacious Rant with Burn and Rye. How you doing, buddy, old pal friend?
Oh, old Chumley. It's not bad. It's a beautiful day out in, Southern California. But,
The sun's out, the buns are out, it's all good.
I was going to say guns out, but, that works too. You're totally right with that. I can respect that. But no, like said, I hate to start with a bummer, but today we lost one of my favorite actors, Fred Willard, today. You heard about that?
Yeah, I did,
Yeah.
man.
For those of you who don't know, Fred Willard, he was in countless films and television shows such as Anchorman. He was oh my God, what's his name? He was the lead guy at the news station. Harkin. He was Ed Harkin in Anchorman. He was Phil Dunphy's dad in Modern Family, and he's been in other mockumentary style movies and shows like Waiting for Guffman, Best in Show. So, we lost a good man today, but it was for natural causes. So he was 86 years.
He was 86 years old, so he's been around for a while, and well, now he'll just get to rest easy.
He gets to rest easy with, Robin Williams, Prince, but at least we still have Bowie.
We'll always have Bowie.
Oh, God rest Bowie. I love that in Deadpool too. It's like, he's been dead, like he died. Just know we'll always have Bowie. He's nodding. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we will always have him.
But it's just a bummer, especially because Fred Willard's also going to be in Space Force, so he died before that show comes out this month. But that's why I'm honestly looking forward to it more, just because it's one of his last performances, if not his last one. I don't know if he had any other jobs in the works right now, but that would be good to see what he plays in that show.
I guess we'll still have more of him, which is always cool.
I am going to watch Best in Show today, because not only do I miss having a dog, but he was hilarious in it. He was a commentator on the dog show.
He made his career out of like being those like wacky side parts, so he always does a great job.
Oh yeah, he was great at the little roles he played. He was hilarious. He's one of those actors that, unless you really know his name, you'll recognize him wherever you hear him and wherever you see him. Like, it's like, oh, it's that one guy. So, and there's a lot of
like, oh, that guy, he's funny.
Exactly. But before we get started with our reviews today, before I actually kind of talk about the news, like some updates and stuff like that, started watching the Upload show on Amazon, because I know we were talking about Amazon last time, but it's that Upload show that stars Robbie Amell. And a lot of the actors actually seem pretty new to it. Like, I haven't really heard of most of these people. So, forgive me if I don't remember all the names, but Robbie Amell, he was in Arrow as Firestorm, and Daniel Panabaker's love interest in that show. So it's good to see that he's getting out into more roles, and this one's hilarious. Have you heard about it at all, Fern? Seen the ads for it at all?
No, I've heard the name, but haven't really seen any like advertisement for it really. What's the basic like premise about?
Okay, so essentially it takes place in, not too distant future, like 2030, 2034 era. So it's like about 14 years into the future, and Robbie Amell plays this guy, who he's a coder, he's kind of working on something, but he's very vain, but he's there for his family. He's dating this gorgeous chick, but she's also very vain. So you kind of get like, okay, he's kind of a D-bag right now. You don't really care about him that much. He gets into an accident, and what happens in the future is that not only are cars completely automated with their own AI, but if you run the risk of death, you can either die a natural death, or you can upload into like an AI program, like a cyberspace kind of situation. So
That's crazy.
Yeah, so think of it as like the Matrix, but more positive, I guess, because, in the Matrix where you're living your life, but you don't know it's there, you're in a program, and you just have to adjust. So, The ads I don't think did it justice. So if anyone's been seeing those ads off like Amazon or Hulu, it's worth the watch. I'm already 5 episodes into it, just because my brother put it on today and we kind of sat down and watched it. So it was pretty funny, pretty stupid humor, but also comments a lot on like social media of today, the whole vaping crisis, not crisis, but like the whole vaping debate. And it just really paints like a very grim look of like what the future is, but it's masked with like, oh, glamour kind of situation. You know what I mean? Like it looks good, but deep down it's really like bad.
Okay, so is it like you said it's more of a comedy?
Yes, it's definitely a comedy. There are some serious moments in it, but overall it's hilarious. And Robbie Amell is proven, he's starting to prove to me he can definitely lead a show of his own. So I'm excited to see him in more.
Yeah, that does sound pretty interesting because usually with like something along that subject matter, you tend to see them go like a lot more serious or like darker route with the story, kind of like how they do like when they touch on those sort of like AI subjects and like things like Black Mirror. It's always usually like pretty messed up. So it sounds like they're taking a different approach, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's a very, like I said, the plot is it's pretty serious because there's not a conspiracy. I don't want to give away too much, but it's entertaining. Like I said, I'm enjoying it because it's funny. It's a really cool way to see kind of how future tech can advance within the next 10 years alone. Given it's science fiction, but science fiction is based on science fact to a certain degree. So yeah, like I said, dude, whenever you get a chance, definitely check it out. Same with whoever's listening. I definitely recommend it. It just released in the beginning of May this year, so it's a fresh show to start.
Cool. I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah. But any Hoosers, one of the big news I've been talking about the last couple episodes, Mandalorian Season 2, which is set to release this year in October, that just added another one of my favorite actors, Timothy Olyphant, who I mentioned heavily in the last episode when he's the star of Justified. But some of his other things that he's really appeared in and made an impact on me are Scream 2, The Santa Clarita Diet, Hitman, he was in Deadwood on HBO, the movie The Crazies, and recently, as of last year, he was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Not a leading role, but still, he kind of played alongside of Leo DiCaprio's actor in that movie. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, no, I'm excited too. I mean, Timothy Olyphant has always been one of those actors that you're like, oh man, he does like a lot of really great work, but he just doesn't get those like super big, AAA roles that like other people do. But regardless of whatever you see him in, he always brings like his A game, and he's always really good. So, I mean, having him in the Star Wars universe is definitely a plus.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't know, from what I've seen, nobody knows what role he's playing, and I commend Disney and Jon Favreau, basically the whole writing team, on keeping this season very tight-lipped. Even the last one was the first season. You didn't really know what was going to happen with it. So this is all great things. I like that they're keeping the mystery with it. So he can range it. It'd be kind of cool to see if he's another bounty hunter, in my opinion. That'd be kind of interesting to see. But even if it's a small cameo, there's been so many good actors on that show that made a lot of cameos, which we'll talk more in depth with in a little bit. But I just want to throw that out there. Just a couple updates on my part. Some of the Marvel movies I really was looking forward to. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is set to be directed by James Gunn. There were rumors that it was supposed to start production February 2021 next year, but those rumors are debunked, and it's currently in like a production limbo where it doesn't really have a date. So I'm not too worried about it because, there's going to be they definitely need to get the story right after Volume 2 and Endgame, in my opinion, for it to really work. So that's fine. Black Panther Part 2, or Black Panther 2, is supposed to release next 2 years from now, so May 6th, 2022. And then Black Widow, for those of you who haven't really kept up or noticed, is supposed to release this year, November 6th. So this will be the first time we've had one Marvel movie, I think, not even since the first Iron Man. This is going to be the first Marvel movie in God knows how long, over 12 years. which is crazy.
Yeah,
if you
right.
think about it.
Because even when Iron Man came out, like later on that summer, the Incredible Hulk came out. So we always had like 2 or 3 Marvel movies a year, if I remember correctly, right?
I'm 1,000% sure, yeah. Because the Incredible Hulk, it wasn't by Marvel yet. It's Universal. From what I haven't really heard much or confirmed anything, but it's still owned by Universal. So the Incredible Hulk was done by Universal, but in that same year, and Robert Downey Jr. also made a cameo in that. So it's just crazy to I just thought about that. I was like, oh my God, we're gonna be stuck with one Marvel movie for the first time. Given we're not going to the movies right now, but still crazy to think that this is the only Marvel movie coming out this year when there were still 2 others. But everything's been pushed back. So that's the nature of the game.
Yeah, because it was supposed to be Black Widow and then the Eternals later on this year, correct?
Yeah, but it was supposed to be, Black Widow, the Eternals, and then was that it? I want to say there was one more. I thought maybe it was just those 2.
Yeah, I think it was just those 2, and then like Shang-Chi was like slated for early next year, I
Early
believe.
next year. Yeah, you right. Another movie which I keep talking about, not a lot of people care, but I'm trying to get people to care. The New Mutants is now has a release date of August 28th of this year. So I'm excited about that, especially since, LA County stay-at-home order ends right beginning of August, end of July. So at least a few weeks after that, I'll have hopefully it'll be up and running with the movie theaters. So I'm excited for that. You know what? I know you chuckle at my pain and anguish but you know what? I have hope. That's all I want.
I just have a feeling you're the only one excited for that movie, but I mean, I could be wrong.
I'm just saying it's got Maisie Williams, Anya Taylor-Joy. Those 2 alone make me want to see it because I love Anya Taylor-Joy and Glass and what's the other one? No, not Glass. What was it? Split. Split. I liked her in Split because she actually was that's more about her. So I like that one. And Maisie Williams was Arya Stark in Game of Thrones. So that's already enough for me to be like, okay, I'm there. Let's give this a try.
I mean, I'll watch it. It looks interesting.
I'm gonna see it, so especially because the trailer that is under the Marvel umbrella that released last year when the whole sale of Fox went through Disney, I thought, oh, this actually revealed much more of the story, but without giving too much away. So I'm excited. And any updates you're looking forward to? Any new movies have you heard about at all?
I mean, the movie news in general has been like pretty slow lately, but I did see recently Robert Pattinson gave an interview in the GQ, if anyone knows the GQ magazine. So he did an interview from home, and it seems to have caused some sort of a ruckus within the Batman fandom because of certain things that he said. To boil it all down to summarize it, he basically was saying how he's not really working out as much in the time of quarantine, and that seemed to get a lot of people in a ruckus.
I personally think people need to relax on that. I also did read about the interview. I didn't read all of it just because it was through another source other than GQ, but okay, because for everyone who knows, Ben Affleck's my favorite Batman, whether you liked it or not. In my opinion, he was the best Batman we had, not only physically, but he portrayed himself so well in Batman vs. Superman as just a very dark, broken person, which Batman essentially is. Because first off, he's named himself after the animal that gave us our quarantine. So that's one. Let's remember that. Man, that's irrelevant. But I'm just saying, he's a character who's experienced a lot of childhood trauma, gone through so much to become the man he is. And and comics within the last at least 20, 30 years have really geared towards the fact that Batman can't stop being Batman. And that's what Ben Affleck did for me. For Robert Pattinson, I was very testy at first because, again, like most people, I thought the Twilight guy is going to be Batman. Like, we're really doing this. But after looking at some of the movies he's done over the last few years, I haven't watched all of them in all honesty just because they seem a little too artsy for me or just weird. But he's proven himself to become a better actor, and as long as he's in great shape for it, and they just get Batman right. I have trust in Matt Reeves and the writers, and Pattinson. I'm giving my support for. So yeah, people need to relax on that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and just in terms and context of the interview, I will say that if people read the whole thing, they'd realize that he was kind of trolling the interview the whole time. Just talking about microwaving pasta and
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
yeah, and if you look at any of his interviews in the past, you'll see that he never really takes any of them seriously. Like, he's always just having fun with the person. So, and then also there was like a picture of him, out jogging, so he's still definitely keeping in fit. But I mean, just to speak about like just him being cast in the role, I mean, I can speak to a lot of his work that he's done outside of the Twilight movies, and I mean, I'm a big fan of his. Like, he's gone from like someone who I didn't really care about at all, to being one of my favorite, newcomer. Well, not necessarily newcomer, but one of the best like younger talents in Hollywood, with his roles in movies like what was it, Cosmopolis, High Life, the movie he did with the Safdie brothers, Good Time. They're the ones that did the Uncut Gems movie with Adam Sandler. And it's on Netflix right now, the Good Time, so I definitely recommend people go check that out if they want to see, what Robert Pattinson's been doing lately. But needless to say, I have full faith in him in the role, because he dedicates himself to every role, like, full on. So, I mean, he's got my endorsement.
Absolutely. I do agree with you. He's not a newcomer, but I would spin it more as like he's an actor who's kind of turned around from being like a pretty boy actor with like just fandom from being good looking, which he was deemed the best looking gentleman of this year. I don't remember, but he's, like I said, I respect the fact that he's kind of driven more into the serious material, dramatic stuff, definitely out of his norm with Twilight. So, I agree with you on that. He's not one of my favorites, though. I will say that he's also going to be in Tenet, so I'm kind of excited to see what his role alongside of John David Washington's character was going to be, and that's still slated for July. But
yeah,
I mean,
and I mean, if being cast in a Christopher Nolan movie should be, endorsement enough.
Yeah, like Matt Reeves, Chris Nolan, Quentin Tarantino. If you get one of those really big directors and you kind of cast in that's a good sign that, hey, obviously the director likes him enough for the role. Let's give it a try. Put some faith in him. So I'm fine with that. I do agree with you on that. I'm excited to see Batman again too. So I kind of missed that. I was really bummed that Ben Affleck didn't get to do it, but he was going through a lot of stuff personally, and again, I still blame Warner Brothers for botching this new DC, but now with like Shazam, Wonder Woman, even Aquaman, which is very divisive with me.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna get into
Joker
that.
and then Birds of Prey have also like done a lot really well too.
Exactly. They're starting to turn themselves around. So I'm hoping with Matt Reeves' Batman, it's going to reboot my hopes for that. So I'm fine.
Yeah, with that one and James Gunn's Suicide Squad, I'm really excited for what the direction they're going to go in from now on is.
I think they're trying to give more faith in their directors and not. I mean, of course, movie studios want to make money. What business doesn't? But they are. I think they finally heard enough of like the fans and even probably some of the writers and directors. Like, just give faith in us. We will do the best we can. And like I said, like you said, Birds of Prey, Joker. I'm fine with it. Joker's not part of the greater extended universe. It's its own movie, from what I remember. But Birds of Prey added on to, definitely an improvement over Suicide Squad. So if you saw Suicide Squad but you didn't, you left a bad taste in your mouth, give Birds of Prey a chance. Regardless that it's an all-female cast, they are awesome. That's all I gotta say. They kick ass in that. But I digress. The last piece of news I want to talk about was James Cameron's favorite quarantine movie, which is something I've been wrapping my head around.
What is his favorite quarantine movie?
I grudgingly say it, Resident Evil, with Mila Jovovich.
Oh, no.
We all have our guilty pleasures. Mine is Batman Forever. Okay, Joel Schumacher, he made a Batman with nips, so I can. If I can do that and people love Transformers, then I guess this is fine. But the main reason that I read about why he likes it and why I kind of forgive him as well is from Michelle Rodriguez. They've worked together for several movies, so it's kind of, I'm sure it's just oh yeah, she's my friend, I'm gonna watch it. But also she was the best part of Resident Evil, so from what I remember.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen that movie in a really long time, but I remember even then not really caring for it just because of how different it was from the games. Rodriguez herself, I mean, she was fine. Like, I mean, her role wasn't that big, but I mean, I guess if you found it made the movie more enjoyable for him, that more power to him.
Well, my only thing is that Mila Jovovich, I loved her in The Fifth Element. That's one of my favorite movies with her. But dude, any video game adaptation she's done, which is basically Resident Evil, and now they're doing Monster Hunter. Her and her husband, I think Paul W.S. Anderson, right? That's the right one.
Yes, yes, there
Okay,
are many Paul Andersons in the in the movie world. Paul W.S. Anderson is the one who's made all those terrible video game movies, and Paul Thomas Anderson is the one that's made all those really great movies like There Will Be Blood and The Master and Inherent Vice
and he's married to Maya
and
Rudolph.
Boogie Nights. Oh yeah, and he is married to Maya Rudolph, which is you wouldn't expect, but hey,
I mean, she's a great actress and she's a great comedian. So I guess maybe that's what they need in life is good comedy. Where Mia Jovovich, maybe she's not humorous, so maybe that's why the movies are bad. I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm just saying, if that's what's helping James Cameron get through this, that's totally fine. We all have our movies, our activities to help us get through quarantine, so I can understand that. But that's enough for me. Shall we get started on today's reviews, good sir?
I'm ready to go, man.
All right. So last episode that we talked about was about Hulu and Amazon platforms. So today we're just going to round it out with another couple of platforms, like streaming platforms that we recommend, which would be Disney Plus and HBO. Given Disney Plus is on the newer side, maybe not everyone's into as much Disney. I know I'm personally not, but they do have several shows, movies that would definitely got me to buy the platform. And HBO, I still have, cable at home, so we subscribe through that. But even if you don't have cable, and HBO has so much great content on it as well, usually has some of the newer movies. It releases at least 6 months after those movies come out and after they get released to Blu-ray. So, which one do you want to start with first, Bernstein? Should we go with Disney Plus or HBO?
Let's go ahead and hit some HBO.
All right, HBO. What do you want to start off with? I'll let you take the lead on this one.
Cool. All right, so my first recommendation for HBO, it's a show I will say is not for everybody. It is pretty narratively dense and can come off as confusing at times, but I think as long as like you keep your mind open and you just don't try to figure out the plot before it gives it to you, just go with the flow, is the show Westworld.
Okay, I do like Westworld. Haven't finished it, but that is a great show to go off with.
Yeah, I mean, and it does have is a melding of two of the really two of my favorite genres in Western and sci-fi. It melds that straight up. It's all about this scientific world where they created this this whole Western world that's basically an interactive theme park for the super rich people in the future.
Yeah, if you want to live out your dreams of playing Red Dead Redemption or pretend to be the outlaw that you were as a kid, this is the place to go. That's what drew me in the first season, was that it's like Jurassic Park, but you're in it. Like, you get to interact with stuff, and the robots that they use, that's the whole point of the park, is that not only is it's authentic Western, like clothing, guns, styles, fashion. It's there are robots that simulate that world, and they're you can't tell if they're human or not, so which is the craziest thing. And that's what got me a part of it, because I love sci-fi, Western. I'm also a huge fan of that genre. So, but even then, it takes such a crazy turn in those seasons, in the last season for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah, they definitely like goes into places you would never expect them to go. Which I applaud them. Like the storytelling is pretty bold when the directions they like choose to go, and just the narrative. Like they just pull the rug out from under you like so many times where you're just like, all right, I think I'm getting it now. Then boom, right back down again, which is cool. I like that.
Exactly. I will say it is definitely. I don't know. I recommend it not to everyone, just because I think it's a show that makes you think a little bit, in my opinion, where it makes you contemplate, especially the first season, because that's the one I've fully seen. I still have to finish season 2 and catch up on season 3. But season 1 I know it's almost like The Witcher, where it's hard to tell the timelines a little bit. But even then, it kind of goes more in depth with that. But overall, the concepts of like the technology in the park, that's what makes you think, in my opinion.
It's not one of those shows that you can put on for background noise, because if you miss out on a minute, you'll be completely lost.
Exactly. No, yeah, it's definitely not a show you can casually get into. Like if you're looking for a show to really invest in, really kind of dive in deep with, that is definitely, it takes a lot of your attention for that. So I agree with you on that one.
And I mean, just the cast is fantastic. Like Evan Rachel Wood, Ann Harris, James Marsden, Danny Newton, Jeffrey Wright. Like it's a stacked cast, and they all do such a great job. Especially the actors who are playing the robots in the park. Like they go from like expressing this crazy amount of emotion, and then just on a split second, just completely going dead face. Like it's insane to watch it. I mean, just for that alone, like if you're just like a fan of acting, I mean, just watch that work there.
Yeah, and it actually kind of really throws in a lot of up and comer actors, like Tessa Thompson. She's already done a couple great things before that, like Creed, and Creed's probably the only thing I really remember her in before that.
I mean, Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, but I think Westworld kind of helped her get into that, because I know Westworld came out before.
Probably.
Yeah, so, but even then, it also has some of the Hemsworth brothers, which, if you've seen Thor Ragnarok, you'll also recognize them in this, which is pretty funny. And the new season has Aaron Paul in it, so that's already enough for me to really need to catch up with this show. Tao Okamoto from the Wolverine and Batman vs Superman, she also played a small part in that. She's in it as well. So yeah, the more I talk about it, I definitely need to catch up. So yeah, they are about 10 episodes each, maybe a little bit less.
They're all 10 episodes each and like an hour long, like 40 something, 50 something minutes.
Yeah, so if anyone who ultimately loves sci-fi, and honestly, if you did like Jurassic Park, you'll really like this, because both Jurassic Park and Westworld, the novels, were written by Michael Crichton. So that's already enough for me. So
there's a lot of like that thematic crossover there. So if you really enjoyed Jurassic Park, then you'll probably enjoy Westworld.
It's kind of like that joke in Jurassic Park that describes Westworld. Yeah, but John, if the Pirates of the Caribbean breaks down, the pirates don't eat the tourists. I think actually that's probably like a little joke to reference Westworld too, because that's essentially what the old movie was about with Yul Brynner, where he plays the black cowboy, like not an African American cowboy, but like the cowboy
black, yeah.
Black. Yeah, you know what I meant. But yeah, I like that. This is definitely one of those shows I think it works best as a show and not a remake of the movie. So that's what most shows should go around. But to segue from that, another show I do want to talk about on HBO that I just discovered after months of people recommending it to me. You also recommended it to me, Barry with Bill Hader.
Oh my God, yes.
I just started it the other day because not only were we talking about it, playing some Warzone, but my other friend from high school, he's like, dude, you should check out Barry. It's so funny. Like, really give it a watch. And after really thinking about it, I'm like, okay, screw it. Let me give it a try. And wow, first season in one day. I'm working on the second season. My Apple TV does not have HBO anymore, so I need to upgrade that. But oh my god. Basically it's about this Bill Hader plays this guy Barry. He's a Marine vet who came back from Afghanistan, and Afghanistan or Iraq, I'm sorry, I don't remember, but he works as a hitman, but then he discovers an acting class, and he's just torn between the fact of trying to, get out of that hitman life and trying to start a new one, but he keeps getting drawn into, the criminal underworld. So it's a very dark comedy, but honestly, it was easy what I love about it also is that it's an easy show to binge because it's only 8 episodes for the first season and a half hour long. So it's not a hard show to get into. Very funny.
It's a super, super easy binge. And I mean, the show just works as a fantastic showcase of Bill Hader's talent because, it's his show. Like he's written it and he's had like a big creative hand in it and, playing the main character as well. So, I mean, if you weren't like a fan of his work already and, him doing SNL and stuff, then this will definitely throw you over the edge because, I mean, wow. It does such a great job of, like you said, being very dark at times, but then also being laugh out loud funny, but always remaining true. Like it's never like the tone is never just like whiplash. Like you're like, oh well, that just doesn't work. It always works, and it's always like really, really well written. And I mean, Henry Winkler, the national treasure in the show, is hilarious. And then the actor, I don't remember his name, but NoHo Hank is always cracking me up.
He's such a dumb criminal, but he's so lovable. It's really hard to hate him in that show, even though he causes so many problems. But oh
yeah,
God.
because I mean they're all like there's like terrible people, but they're just like you said they're endearing, and that's just a credit to how well they're written.
Exactly. And I also, quick thing to that, what I also love about HBO and what that does, especially with Westworld and, Barry, is that afterwards they do have like a little couple minutes about talking about the episode, like if like the actor or just the writers. But for instance, with Barry, it's Bill Hader and the showrunner talking about that. So that's also kind of a nice thing to do. If you get confused by stuff, it'll kind of go over the episode briefly or the key points in it. So that's also kind of what drew me into Barry, because learning some of that stuff. Like one episode, Bill Hader talked about the action choreography behind it and how he had to learn it. So, and he kind of laughed. He's like, yeah, I almost messed up a take because I actually did it right. And I was like, okay, that actually sounds pretty funny. So I recommend it. It's only 2 seasons long. That's the bummer for me, is that I love this show and I want season 3 to happen, but no release date for that yet.
No, yeah, we'll just have to wait. But I'm excited once it releases. I'm there.
Oh, I'm going to talk about once I'm sure you're going to hear a message from me about how I finished season 2. So, but oh my God, another comedy I do want to talk about as well, real quick, will be Vice Principals.
Yes, I mean, you were actually first to the show. I mean, where Barry was, I was first. I'll take credit for that one, but you can definitely take credit for showing me Vice Principals.
Oh, absolutely. I will not be humble about that. I do take credit for introducing people to Vice Principals, because it's one of those, because I love Danny McBride. That's who it stars. Danny McBride and Walton Goggins. Walton Goggins is in Justified, and he plays a lot of small characters like in Community and a couple other stuff. He was in the Tomb Raider movie a couple years ago as the bad guy in that.
Also, Ant-Man and the Wasp, right? In a really small role.
Yeah, he was like a business espionage bad guy in Ant-Man and the Wasp. So, but anyways, Vice Principals is about literally Dan Brown and Walton Goggins kind of going at each other while also trying to take down a new principal. Because think about a Game of Thrones where everyone's trying to be number one, but for a middle school. That's all it's about, is a middle school.
Yeah. To be vice principal at a middle school.
Actually, not even it's a principal at a middle school, but they're just idiot vice principals. And oh my God, that show. It's only 2 seasons long, just because Dan McBride and the writers, they really thought, nah, what can we do? How can we keep this going? Like, I think we should just keep it as a short story, and I respect him for that. Oh my god, I couldn't get over that show. I've rewatched the first season a couple times just because it's so funny. I don't know how you don't laugh at it for some form or another. It is pretty dark though, with certain episodes. So, but it's like I said, that one I recommend to everybody. I don't care what your preference is. You should watch it.
Yeah, no, I second that too. And like you said, like I mean, it's only 2 seasons and the story's over, and it's a pretty it's a good credit like on the writers because it's one of those premises that can lend itself to being one of those that you just drag on where you're like, oh, one's in power, oh now they're not, and they're always like backstabbing each other, and oh they're gonna get it, oh no they don't get it. No, it doesn't do that at all. It does not overstay its welcome. You're laughing the entire time. And I mean, just Danny McBride and Walton Goggins going at each other is so petty and so funny. Like, there's nothing else that's like it.
They're definitely on like I think they're some of the best comedic like duos in years, if anything, of our time, because they work so well together, and they did another show together, Righteous Gemstones, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but they're the next two, like Jackie Chan, Chris Tucker, Ben Stiller, Owen Wilson. They're just so organic, so hilarious with each other. And in real life, they're also good friends. So that only adds on to the chemistry that you see on screen and off screen. So, yeah. But,
Yeah, I definitely agree.
I'll throw the ball in your court. What's another show you got, on HBO that you like?
Cool. All right, so we're going on the opposite end of the spectrum. Not funny at all. So if you were having fun, you're not going to have fun now. How about that?
Oh man. It's terrifying.
So this show was a miniseries that came out last year, and it's the show Chernobyl.
Oh yeah.
And that talks about the Chernobyl power plant, that would completely bust. The one that a lot of movies like try to make horror movies out of, like, oh, the Chernobyl power plant and a nuclear plant that blew up is causing all these crazy things. But this one, takes all that aside and really shows you like what might have happened, like with the people involved in there, and then the aftermath of that. It's so realistic, and unlike the horror movies that try to make everything like, oh, they start making these mutated monsters. No, this is a horror movie in the most realistic sense, where you're seeing the things that radiation does to a body, and it is insane. The storytelling is so fantastic because it's a political thriller basically with this, the government trying to cover it all up, and people being in denial about all the things that led to this failure of this nuclear plant, and it's so engaging the entire time, and it's hard to look away even when you want to.
Oh man, but that's some of the best. Those are usually some of the best movies, like especially like the dramatic movies where you're watching, it's something terrible happening, but you're invested in it. You're concentrating on it, so you can't look away. But then afterwards, you're forced to live with the fact that you did watch
it. Yes. There will be images that will be seared into your mind. So I mean, if it's not for everybody, because I mean, just some of the imagery you see is pretty. Even for me, I was like, whoa, that's pretty intense. But I mean, if you can stomach it, then I think it's one of the best shows in a long time. Like, full stop.
I know that won a bunch of awards last year too, so that's a big deal. I didn't get around to it just because it looked a little too heavy for me, but shit, man, I'll definitely have to give that a look-see, especially if you're describing it as a horror show. I'm into that. So
yeah, I describe it as a horror show just because of the things you see in. But like I said, just the whole political aspect of it and just the government cover-up, it's all like, if you're into those like thrillers, then you'll be into that aspect of the story.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's a miniseries. One season, I believe it's only like 5 episodes, so you won't have to live in that world for long, but it'll stick with you.
Oh man, for sure. Okay, I'll have to give that one a look-see. And like you heard him, folks, if you're into also looking for like a good political drama / like a realistic look on that terrible tragedy, that's one to check out. So I know I will. What else you got for me? I'll let you get another one since I got 2 in there.
Nah, I don't want to. I'm just kidding. Okay.
Wow.
Nah, I don't want to go 2 times in a row. Okay, so another one I got. Okay, not completely serious, but Watchmen, the Watchmen series on HBO.
Which I still need to watch as well.
Yes, you do. I definitely give that high recommendation as I do Chernobyl. That it's definitely one of the best shows, in my opinion, of the last few years. I mean, and it is based on a comic book, which I'll say doesn't detract from it at all because of the themes that they decide to implement in this show. If you're unfamiliar with the Watchmen IP, it's a graphic novel that was written by
Alan Moore, right?
Alan Moore, and illustrated by David Gibbons, that came out a while back and is widely regarded as one of the greatest graphic novels or literary works of all time. So, I mean, if that's not an accolade enough, then I don't know what is. But this show chooses to do something that's pretty bold, which is basically act as a sequel to that book. Not a sequel to the movie, which a lot of people would have expected.
Yeah.
So, but the movie did a good job of adapting it, except for, one big change at the very end, which this show takes the ending of the graphic novel instead of the ending of the movie. But, I know in the other episodes we have talked about, these superhero shows that have different spins on them, and this one absolutely takes the cake because it touches on a lot of very touchy subjects, a lot of very political subjects, but it does so in a very entertaining way and a very damning way too, where, especially on the topic of racism and all that. So it is a very, very, very thematic show, and it's one that I think handles its subject matter with the absolute masterful hand.
Yeah, I love I've only seen the 2009 Zack Snyder movie, which he's referring to, ladies and gentlemen, that starred Billy Crudup, Malin Ackerman, Patrick Wilson, Jackie Earle Haley, and also a great cast, very solid cast. I personally like the adaptation of the film. I know that got a lot of criticism from the hardcore fans about how it strayed away from the ending, and I love the movie just because I think that was probably at the time it was probably the best way to go. It was a more grounded, very dark way of how all the events transpired, but yeah, I've seen bits and pieces of the show just because my family really got into it, and which is kind of surprising because usually I'll be the first one to watch like the superhero stuff, but they really got invested in it, especially my brother. I do like a couple episodes. They touch on the ideas of religion, politics, and how that in that universe, the events that transpired in the graphic novel really flip the world on its ear by the time the show happens. So, yeah, like I said, I definitely have been wanting to watch it. It's one of those things like, I don't want to watch it and then not, like, kind of lose that feeling of like, oh my God, the part, I can't think of the word. It'll take away the magic for me a little bit, but yeah. So far, if for anyone if there's a season 2, right now I think it's just considered just a miniseries. There may be no season 2,
Yeah.
So that's a good and bad thing. Good thing because you only have to watch one season. If you don't like it but you want to just see where the story goes, you get it done within one. Or if you really love it and want to see more, you may not get more. But that's fine. Sometimes that makes things better when
Yeah,
there's not.
sometimes it's always, good to be left wanting than being like, okay, that overstayed its welcome.
Exactly. Or it's like, man, how did they keep going? Like, I don't know if I want to rewatch it all. So, yeah.
But yeah, Damon Lindelof, the lead writer and the showrunner, for shows like Lost and a few other things with J.J. Abrams. But he came into the series, I guess he said in interviews that HBO had approached him multiple times over the years, and he said no because Watchmen is like his favorite thing in the world, and he didn't want to do anything to like sully the reputation or like not even come close to how good it was. So I mean, he had said no for so many times until finally, he's like, okay, I got something, and I see if to put it all there in one season. Like, that's the way he pitched it to HBO. Like, here's the story. This is beginning to end. Boom. That's it. And I mean, I think, especially for, something that has like, ties to a comic book and something that could be, monetized and merchandised, to no end. It's pretty bold to have someone come in and say, this is the story and that's it, which is pretty awesome.
I agree with you, and obviously it worked because even for the only season of this show, it got so much praise from critics and fans alike. It was very well done from the few bits and pieces I have seen. So it's just a matter of me just getting through my other shows and then having to hop on that one. So I'll check that out soon, man. I'm gonna flip it back to comedic stuff just to kind of bring some light back into this darkness.
Sorry for being such a doubter.
Yeah, sure. You're Bernie the Bummer. How about that?
Bernie the Bummer. All right, I like that. Let's make a T-shirt. Let's put my cheesy face on a mug.
Just like a big old smile, but it's like Bernie the Bummer. It's like, oh man, that's just sad. Another show that Dan and Brian Wong Goggins did together is Righteous Gemstones, which is, oh my god, it's not Vice Principals, but still hilarious and just such a messed up comedy in which Danny McBride, he stars alongside of John Goodman, another actress who's from Vice Principals, she was the maid in Knives Out. I can't remember her name for the life of me, unfortunately, but she's really funny. And the guy from Pitch Perfect, is it, Adam Devine?
Adam Devine?
Adam Devine, yes. Essentially, the Gemstones are like a televangelist family where they're
televangelists.
Yeah, okay, I got that right. I can never pronounce that correctly. They're
Teletubbies. No, televangelists. No, same thing.
Teletubbies. Yeah, let's not talk about that. But the Gemstones, they're this family of televangelists, so they're supposed to be the good Christian family, very warming, very welcoming people. The show is not that at all. They are very, how do I put it? It's almost like a family of like cattle rustlers that they'll move in, they'll take up as much as they can. They're always at each other's throats for petty reasons, just stupid reasons. And John Goodman's the father of like Danny McBride and Adam Devine, and he tries to keep the family together for the most part while conducting business. Walton Goggins makes an appearance like midway through the season. But it's just such a messed up show. I don't want to spoil too much. But if you liked it, like I said, if you've seen Vice Principals, that's definitely a show to jump on. If you haven't, that's another one to check out, especially if you're looking for like maybe a good dark comedy to kind of, laugh at, but also, invest some emotions into because it's stupid.
It's a show that touches on like the monetary aspect of not all religions, but certain religions, and especially like this one where they're just making millions and millions of dollars. But I mean, it touches that subject in a comedic aspect, which is it's always like it lessens the hit.
Exactly. Yeah. No. Oh man, I can't tell you how many times I thought, wow, that is so messed up, but then I would just die laughing the minute after. I get that's another. It's only a season in it as well. I don't know if they will write anymore. I think the way they left it off, they definitely should, just to kind of do another season, just to finish it all off, wrap it up. But season one, it's only a quick binge, so only like 10 episodes or so, maybe a little bit less. So I liked it a lot.
I haven't finished it yet, but it's one I need to get on because, like you said, it's really funny, and John Goodman is just such a treasure.
Yeah, I've grown to love John Goodman more over the years. Like I kind of grew up with him as Fred Flintstone, but then after watching The Big Lebowski when I was an adult, I'm just like, man, he's such an adult actor, but he's hilarious. Like I got to see him do more of these roles, and this is very reminiscent of that. Just a much more calm and calculating version of The Big Lebowski, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, way more calm.
Let me see. I'm gonna throw the ball back to you. What else? What other shows you recommend?
Cool. So this other the recommendation is one for people who are fans of like police procedurals or like crime dramas. This is HBO's big one, which is True Detective. Yeah, so that's it's an anthology series, so each season is, a different set of characters, different crime, different part of the United States. So, if one isn't working for you, then maybe the next one will, which is always good with anthologies because you're always like, okay, maybe this one wasn't great, so but that doesn't mean the next one won't be. But the first season, I think, was absolutely fantastic. It had Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, and that's the one that, people will gravitate to, and that was the one that made the big splash for HBO. So I definitely recommend at least checking out the first season because, it's absolutely fantastic. The setting is pretty crazy because, you never see really, like the southern United States, really portrayed in a lot of mainstream media. So, having a take a look at that, and then the way Matthew McConaughey's character, although made into like really a meme at this point, works in the show, I will say. And, having Woody Harrelson be the voice of the audience responding to his characters, like, evens that out pretty well. So their dynamic is what carries that first season for sure.
Yeah, I gotta rewatch season 1. I never finished that. I caught on to it season 2, which starred Colin Farrell, Rachel McAdams, Vince Vaughn, and it wasn't bad. But from what I kind of got the vibe. I'm like, yeah, this definitely isn't as strong as season 2. Not only by reviews, but just other people who've talked about it. Like you, I know you talked about it when it came out. Like, yeah, dude, season 1 is way better. You should finish that. And I know season 3, I want to say it came out last year. Which my dad watched. I think that starred Mahershala Ali.
Stephen Dorff,
thank you. Yeah, so that season he liked a lot better than season 2 as well, so that's something to consider.
Yeah, so season 1 was really good. Season 2 wasn't as good. I mean, it's still pretty entertaining, but definitely not as good as the first season. But season 3, it was pretty fantastic.
Okay. Yeah, that's another show I'll definitely have to like kind of get back into. I felt like it's one of those shows that got so much hype. I kind of got turned off from it just because I don't know. I get like that sometimes where if everybody absolutely loves it, I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll wait till that cools down. So that's how I am sometimes. I'll have to give it a try.
No, I know that's fair. I know a lot of people will have that certain reactions to shows sometimes, and I will say, yeah, that when the first season came out, that like I said, that show was such a huge hit that you couldn't go anywhere without hearing about it.
Yeah, so when season 1 came out, that was the talk of the town, as they would say, Tinseltown. I just thought of Archer about that. It's like, you're the only one who calls it Tinseltown. Who does that? Another show that I want to talk about somewhat briefly, not really, that really also gave HBO so much more of a grandstanding is Game of Thrones.
The big one.
The big one, yes. So there are a couple other shows I'll throw in before we move on to Disney Plus, but Game of Thrones, it literally is kind of how the name sounds. It plays in a fictional medieval fantasy world where there are 4 main families in the land, Westeros as they call it, and they're all just fighting not only for themselves but also to be basically the main leader, the king of all the lands, and literally sit on an iron throne, which is made from 728 swords of conquered kings.
Oh.
Yeah, I remember that from Parks and Rec because Amy Poehler's character made her husband on that show a replica of the Iron Throne. So I remember that one. But I caught into it season 3 because I remember when you and I were taking black and white photography at Northridge.
Yeah.
The people were talking about like, oh, you haven't seen it? Why haven't you watched it? I'm like, I don't know. I haven't gotten around to it. I missed already the first season. Like, dude, it's all on HBO. Check it out. And right when summer break happened, I was about to go to Hawaii on a family trip. And I had 3 days. So I was like, you know what? Let me just start this show. Let's see what it's about. I finished every season before the trip. So all 3 days, that's literally all I did. My packing wasn't as strong as it could have been until I met up with my family, but that's you do what you gotta do when you start a binge.
The Game of Thrones is a destroyer of one's packing.
Just one's life, really, because I got sucked into that world really quick.
Yeah,
But
I mean, you can't have gone anywhere within the last few years without hearing about Game of Thrones. Honestly, like to put everything in perspective, it's probably the biggest show of all time, just in terms of budget, in terms of just the IP itself. Like it was everywhere for the last few years.
basically all last decade it was around. It's insanity. I mean, I remember when after the first few seasons came out, there was a spike. I remember seeing on the news there was a spike in baby names after Game of Thrones, which I thought, are you serious? But people bought into it. It was a cultural phenomenon, not just, for fantasy people, but for everyone, because it plays on a political genre, action genre, and there's the fantasy thing, which encompasses so much. So, and again, yeah, like you said, the budget really shows that the CGI in that, the sets, the costume design, everything was perfect. Not perfect, but pretty damn near close to it. So I got sucked into it.
Nothing like we'd ever seen before.
No, exactly, because they're having that's one of those, because you see in movies, movies are starting to get better with CGI, as they always do, as the years go on. But this is a show that garnered so much praise literally just from the visuals alone, and that's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, it had taken awards, sweeping award seasons, year after year after year. So, I mean, like I said, if you hadn't seen it or heard about it, I don't know where you've been.
Yeah, it has another great cast. It was definitely comprised of a lot of some newcomers like Kit Harington, Emilia Clarke. Lena Headey she's one of the matriarchs in that. She's actually the matriarch. Or if you've seen Sons of Anarchy, she's a lot like Gemma, where she's such a terrible human being, but she loves her family and will do anything for it. Who's Tyrion Lannister's character? What's that guy's name?
Dinklage?
Yeah, Peter Dinklage. He oh god, I can't explain how he wasn't my favorite character in that. Him and Kit Harington were just, the Batman and Superman of that show, in my opinion. Nicolas Walter Costello. I can't talk enough without trying to spoil too much. I don't want to get rid of, because I want everyone to, watch it with a fresh mind. So
yeah, I mean, this is for if you haven't seen it. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people who have seen it already. But for those of you who haven't, I mean, no matter what you hear about the show now, I mean, to start from the beginning is something that I recommend. I mean, regardless of, people's feelings of, what the show is after it's over, it's one that I would say, had built up a lot of goodwill over the years, and that just a credit to the writing and, like I said, just the budget, just the amount of effort that was put into the show.
Yeah, everything up until the very last season.
The last season and a half. I mean, I know for a lot of people it dropped off, before that, but I mean, I can't really speak to that. That's everybody in their own opinion. So all I could do is just say, give the show a watch if you haven't.
Yeah, even though I hated the last season, Byrne is right. It's definitely worth checking out. I'll leave everyone up to their own opinions. I tried to defend it, but the more I thought about it, I didn't care for it. But even then, besides that, it's a great show, great acting, great action, visuals, just everything. It's the show on HBO that you should definitely watch.
Yeah, and exactly just like you said, for the last 10 years, you hear HBO, Game of Thrones, that's the one.
Exactly. The two shows I want to end on HBO for me are going to be Curb Your Enthusiasm and Entourage.
Oh, the Curb Your Enthusiasm. No matter. That's my last recommendation too. So that's a good one.
Okay, yeah, we'll start with that then. Curb Your Enthusiasm is about Larry David, the writer behind Seinfeld, and it's a mockumentary on his life. So he's still himself. Everybody else is acting in it with him. I watched it a bit when I was like younger, like high school age, just a couple episodes because my parents were into it, and then I started recently watching it a few years ago, and wow, it's so dumb. It's got so much dry humor, but it's also got a lot of just outright hilarious moments that I can't talk enough about him. But he's such a very backwards character. Like he's not a bad guy, but he's done plenty of dumb things to people, and then karma falls on him whether he likes it or not.
Yeah, I mean that's the best way to describe it is, karma's gonna get you, and that's like no more apparent than with his character, because like you said, like he's not a bad guy, but he does make certain decisions and always comes back to bite him in the ass. So, and it's always really funny to see.
He can be either like the funniest and nicest guy in that show, or he's the total just worst person. Where it's like, Larry, come on, you had that coming. You couldn't have thought otherwise. But
Whenever he does something bad, it comes back to get him. Even when he tries to do something good, it does not work out. So it's always really funny to see.
Exactly. And I know we've talked about so far about some of these shows that really define HBO. This one is not necessarily, I would say, defines it, but it's been with HBO for so long, like since early 2000s. So I would definitely.
It's their longest running comedy show, so I mean that's a credit.
Exactly. And like, he is so funny. It's a lot like Black as Fuck, or hashtag Black AF on Netflix, that stars Kenya Barris, where, I think he took a lot of inspiration from Curb Your Enthusiasm because it's about him. It's a mockumentary where everybody else is acting in it. So if you like that, this is a show to watch for sure. Like we said, it's been around for years. So when you watch the first few seasons, as a matter of fact, they do show its age, but it's still, the comedy's still there. The comedy will always be there for him.
Yeah, the comedy is timeless.
And the last one I want to end on HBO is Entourage, which I hope everyone's heard of it. I feel like there's no way you haven't heard of it, especially if you're in the movie, you want to be in the movie industry or you love movies. This is the show that's been around for also several years. They made the movie to finish it all off a couple years ago. It has Matt Dillon's brother. I can't think of his name. Oh my God, I can't think of any of those actors' names. That's really sad. But they all do such a great job in it. The best one for me was Jeremy Piven's character, Ari Goldman. He was like the producer, the agent for one of the actors on that show, and it literally is just the other actors are just his friends and his entourage.
Yeah, it's Mark Wahlberg's show, right?
Yeah, it's Mark Wahlberg's show, and I think it takes a lot of inspiration from his life, like kind of going out as an actor, and his brother as well, who's also Donnie Wahlberg. So you'll see Mark Wahlberg from time to time in it. He was in the movie as well. That's kind of what makes it funnier, because he'll act like, oh, what's up, dude? Like, oh, you're kind of going through the same stuff. I get you, kind of thing. And what made it for me was Jeremy Piven's character, because he's so he's almost like Les Grossman from Tropic Thunder, where he's just so over the top, so angry about the littlest things, but in the end he's a pure-hearted guy. Like, he wants the best for his friends, his family. So if you want something that's very like pop culture related, kind of comments on like a lot of the movie industry going like back then, because it was like mid 2000s, I believe that show took place. It's a good show to watch.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I haven't seen it, but I mean, I definitely know the name because, like you said, it's one of HBO's like bigger shows that just took off like back in the early 2000s. So you couldn't go anywhere without seeing posters for the show. So.
Exactly, and it's one of those shows that has a lot of good, a lot of great cameos in it from big and small actors alike. And like I said, before we move on to Disney Plus, HBO, they have a lot of there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff on there that you can't get on like Hulu or Netflix, and they're really actually fun to watch too with these shows. So I recommend that. Like I said, with Barry, Game of Thrones, Westworld, True Detective, they'll kind of give you a brief look at on those episodes. So it's definitely worth purchasing, streaming whenever you guys get the chance. But let's move on. Disney Plus, which came out last fall, October of 2019. It's already been around for 7 months. That's
Wow.
great. Time flies.
How the time flies.
Seriously, dude, it's hard to believe. I remember just paying for the app and thinking, okay, it's gonna be out in a month. I can wait. And then there it is. And the show that everyone should know that I'm gonna talk about first is going to be what we've been talking about the last several episodes, which is The Mandalorian.
Yep, that's the big one, the headliner, the big kahuna.
Exactly. It's the one to really give Disney Plus its worth, in my opinion. Not only just not to give it as no, I mean that's probably me. That's my opinion. So there are Disney movies and shows that are on there that's worth watching, but Mandalorian, what nailed it for me getting it because it's canon with Star Wars. Let me just give a quick background of what it's about. It's an 8-episode series right now that takes place 9 years after the original trilogy's events. So after Return of the Jedi, it's 9 years after that. The character, the Mandalorian himself, he is a bounty hunter, very much like Boba Fett. But what I like about it is he has more honor. It's much more of like it's a very Western genre based show, but also it takes place a lot of like kind of Kurosawa's like samurai shows in a way where, like I said, he's a bounty hunter, which is not the most, it's not the greatest profession, but he has a code, he has honor, he's a decent person, So I like that show, and it kind of just follows, his adventure throughout the season after one botched job.
Yeah, I mean the show, if anything, works as the showcase for what's we can expect from Disney Plus. It being such a new streaming service to the game, they really needed to come out with something that would give people faith in being like, okay, I'm willing to drop what is it, like $7 every month, or like however much for the whole year. So they really needed to come out swinging, and I think they absolutely knocked it out of the park. I mean, if you're a fan of Star Wars, then this is the best Star Wars anything to come out within the last few years by far, I would say, at least in my opinion.
Oh, I 1,000% agree with you. Like, if I'm gonna tell you this right now, whoever's listening, if you don't like the sequel trilogy, like Force Awakens, Last Jedi, this show is enough to hold you down. It is a show that I can't. I really enjoyed this show because it reminds me so much of the older movies, while with the new technology, the visuals, new stories, it's very modern and a good refresh of it all. So if you just want to watch the original trilogy, which is all on there, given it has some of the changes George Lucas added after the prequel trilogy and whatnot, which I don't agree with, this still has a lot. This offers so much more lore into the Star Wars world than we have seen with the prequel trilogy and the sequel trilogy. So that alone.
And even if you're not a fan of the Star Wars IP, I would recommend it to you just on the merits of just what happens in the show alone. I mean, like you said, it does take place after episode 6, but the story is like isolated and focused enough to where you don't really need all that outside knowledge of what's going on in the galaxy. I mean, it works as its own story, and that's honestly what's really good because it's easy access for new viewers or people not familiar with the Star Wars universe.
Yes, I do agree with you on that. You don't necessarily have to watch the movies to understand what's going on. It does fill in some gaps for you, but this is a show you can just sit down and watch on your own. If that intrigues you, like the Star Wars universe gets you excited, watch the rest of the movies. That's what I would say, to really patch you in there. But again, like how we were talking about Game of Thrones and the quality of that, this is the Game of Thrones of Disney Plus.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, where Game of Thrones is done, now the the spot is open for the next big budget show of the modern times, and I think this one is definitely making the case for being that show.
Oh, absolutely. Again, I've talked about so much excitement for season 2, especially because it has such a great cast. And what I loved about season 1 is that it introduced several great directors like Rick Famuyiwa, who did Dope, and I can't think of what else for me. Bryce Dallas Howard, Taika Waititi, and Jon Favreau was the showrunner. So he kind of helped all these directors loop it together. And another show to kind of, help understand The Mandalorian a little bit better behind the scenes would be The Gallery for The Mandalorian. And so far it's 3 episodes in, but they talk about like how the directors dealt with the story and their shooting, the visuals, the story. So it's definitely like an extended behind the scenes, which I encourage 1,000% with this show in addition to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was my other Disney Plus recommendation, was the First Look, because, like you said, it's an extended behind the scenes. If that's like something you're interested in, or even just passively interested in, where you can see all the work that goes into making these shows, and it does show you that the people behind it are really invested and really looking to put out the best product out there.
Yes, so much work I put into it. The show really. It really puts it all out there, and it just makes you excited for everything else, like you said, to come, like Falcon and Winter Soldier, WandaVision, Loki. This is just basically like, okay, Disney has shown that it will put money behind its work, and we're gonna get top quality stuff, like cinema quality stuff, which is the biggest deal to me.
There was nothing in The Mandalorian where I was like, oh, that wasn't like movie quality. Like, it seems like if it was up on the big screen, that's where it would belong, because like you said, it's cinematic quality without equal.
Oh my God, that's what if real quick, if drive-in movie theaters make their comeback, that's what they should do. Like every week,
The series.
like just show series like every week. Oh, we're putting this episode on there, we're putting that episode on there, or we're putting several shows on there for you to watch. So it's like you're kind of watching like maybe The Mandalorian and I don't know, Legion or Sons of Anarchy and Justified. That I don't know. That's just an idea I had. I need trademarks. Get the papers going. We need to get this working now.
Damn it!
Get my agent on the phone. I don't have one. What? What is this?
Well, get me one then.
God dang it! Like I said though, ladies and gentlemen, if well, not only does Disney Plus have everything in their library from Fox, like such as they have The Simpsons on there, they have National Geographic, and they are starting to have more Fox movies on there. It's Mandalorian is the one show that made me want to get it for sure.
I mean I already have enough streaming services as it is, but seeing that show, I was like, yes, I'll take another one. Why not?
Exactly. Speaking of Star Wars, another show I've been binging through would be Star Wars: The Clone Wars show.
The animated show.
Yes, which I know you finished promptly on May the 4th, which I do respect. I never got into it just because, like I said, it's more of at least the first several seasons are definitely more of a kid's show. It's very it's very, like I said, it's just grounded for kids, so it's not as violent, it's not as action-packed in my opinion, but it basically is a filler in between from episode 2 of the prequels, Attack of the Clones, to episode 3 of Revenge of the Sith, and how Anakin and Obi-Wan have grown from between those movies, and kind of sets the groundwork for the rest of the Skywalker saga. It's not a bad show. I think everything from like season 3 till the last season, I've really enjoyed so far. I think it grew more into like a show for everyone to watch while also improving on its visuals.
Yeah, it's done what a lot of the best animated shows do, where it starts off and it's very kiddie, but later on as the stories progress and the seasons go on, it just gets into more deeper and like more mature storytelling, which I appreciate.
Yeah, and like I said, it kind of gives you more insight to some future characters like Ahsoka Tano, who Rosario Dawson will be playing in The Mandalorian Season 2. She is Anakin's apprentice. Given I thought you had to be a Jedi Master to do so, but after some research, if you were a Jedi Knight, you could take on an apprentice, because if you think about it, that's how Obi-Wan and Anakin met, aka Darth Vader, because Obi-Wan got promoted Jedi Knight, and Anakin was his apprentice. So that works out. It also includes some great characters that Tamora Morrison was the base of, such as, Captain Rex, Commander Cody, all those clone troopers that are now part of canon. So when I say canon, for those of you who don't know, it's part of the story, just officially a part of the story. And that's what I really liked about it, is kind of getting more insight on these extra characters that didn't really play parts in the movies that much, but you get to see them explored in the show.
Yeah, I mean, and the show is really only a recommend for, people who, or, are fans of the Star Wars IP, or at least, interested in the Star Wars IP, just because of, where it takes place within the larger narrative. But, I mean, in my personal opinion, it does so much to redeem the stories of the prequels that I think it does a better job in a lot of parts than those movies themselves.
Yeah, exactly. I like parts of the prequels, but for right now with this show, I'm definitely leaning more towards the show, because it explores everything a little bit more, and it just has so much more character development. Given it can, because it's a TV show and has more room to, but I enjoyed it a lot more. So yeah, if you love Star Wars, like he said, you kind of want to get more into it and explain and kind of fill in the gaps for you of how the original trilogy got its, a lot of background from, this is the show to watch. And a couple other shows. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to talk. Actually, no, a couple. Let me retract from that. A couple other shows.
Retro.
Just retro times 4. Are going to be shows I grew up with as a kid. That's the one thing I love about Disney, is that the app has so much nostalgic shows and movies that it kind of turns your brain off, reminds you of the good old days. And one of those is Gargoyles, that I grew up with when I was a kid. Do you remember that show? Did you ever watch that much?
I remember, seeing it, but not really paying too much attention to it. Like, it wasn't really my show.
I kind of watched more of it in elementary, because I didn't know. I only had like a VHS of like maybe the first couple episodes, because that's VHS. If I knew it was on VHS, then that was it for me.
VHSs.
The old days, man. A lot of kids don't even know what VHS is, video cassette tapes for your television. But anyways, it's about gargoyles are creatures that have been around for thousands of years. They're all, for any of those who don't know what a gargoyle is, basically they're those creatures that kind of stood on top of like skyscrapers, like mythical creatures or demons, whatever have you. And they were kind of designed to help scare away birds and stuff like that. But in the show, there are statues in the day, but at night they turn into living, breathing creatures, who are sometimes more human than the human characters in the show. And it just follows their adventures from being frozen in time from the 1400s Scotland, I believe, to modern day 1995 or some year, if I'm right. And just follows their adventures from there. So if you're kind of looking for maybe a good fantasy show to get into, that's one I would recommend to check out. It's old school animation. My only critique is that some episodes you will notice it's very cinema quality animation, and others is very not so much. Very
passive.
Yeah, very passive animation. Doesn't have that organic feel to it. But it just, like I said, it reminds me of the good old days. It has great voice acting in it from Keith David, who is also the voice of Spawn on HBO, which I forgot to talk about. But I'm still trying to get through that show. It's a little hard to get through, which is probably why I didn't talk about it. But yeah, it's got solid voice acting, solid animation. Really worth the watch if you're looking for something on Disney to check out. And if you have kids, worth the watch. The last one we do want to talk about that's kind of, also been some of our mentions of our episodes is X-Men Evolution. This is another childhood show I grew up with, like Saturday morning cartoon status. Basically, it's actually a lot more what I liked about it is that it's more in line with the original comics. Basically, how the mutants we knew from the Fox movies about 20 years ago, where they're all adults, basically like Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Beast. We're all teenagers. And they're the X-Men growing up, dealing with high school life, maturity, and they still fight Magneto and other mutants who are still trying to keep the divide between humans and mutants alike. And I've been watching it because it's how do I put this? It's good animation. I wouldn't say great just because it is on the older side, so it's not as clean as it could be nowadays, but it's a really, I like that it's more in line with the comics, how they're younger, there's more adventures for them to have, and it's the show that introduced X-23, who was in Logan, so that was another plus for me, which I really like.
Yeah, I mean, this might be blasphemy, but I will say this is my X-Men show, and not the old '90s cartoon.
I mean, I could see where the blasphemy will come in. I'm kind of fine with it. I've read a lot of, after that show came out, I read a lot of articles talking about the differences between them. And the old cartoon, we all grew up with that. And that was literally right out of the comic books, which isn't terrible. However, X-Men Evolution does take a lot of liberties with the show as well. So, if you want something more direct to the comics, then the original 90s animated X-Men will be yours. But I'm very open-minded when it comes to like the characters and, the stories they go through. So X-Men Evolution won it over for me. And the character design got better with that show too. It modernizes it for, the 2000s while also keeping true to the original characters.
Yeah, and then that's why I really enjoyed it too.
Yeah, but that's honestly it for me for the shows on Disney Plus. Like I said, there's a lot more stuff like the Spider-Man shows, X-Men shows, there's Star Wars Rebels. There's a whole slew of content on Disney Plus that I haven't gotten around to for whatever reason, but the app is worth it. It's only $8 a month if you pay for it. You can bundle it with Hulu and ESPN Plus. So if like I told my friend, if her boyfriend likes ESPN and they like watching shows together, just get the bundle. It saves you money and you get it for a whole year for $13 a month. Or actually $8 a month, one of the two.
Yeah, I mean it is a pretty good bargain for a lot of the stuff that you get, and that the promise of what you will get in the future too.
Exactly. Like how we touched upon Falcon and Winter Soldier. That's my next show I'm super looking forward to because I'm excited to see Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie bring the roles back as Winter Soldier and Falcon / Captain America.
And then just the IPs that they have access to with Star Wars and the Marvel and Pixar and all those other animations, we can expect so much in the future, which is really exciting.
Absolutely, but that'll do it for me for the movie reviews for the platforms to get us through this quarantine, and I look forward to talking about other stuff, man. We're gonna keep putting out content for everyone to listen to. Please like and subscribe us. Leave a comment for us on if there's anything you guys want us to review, check out. We'll greatly appreciate that, and we'll definitely look into everything.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun doing these platform reviews and recommendations and stuff. But it'll be nice to touch on some other topics.
Exactly, and like I said, the shows you talked about, I'm definitely like Barry. I definitely need to check out Legion, Atlanta, and Chernobyl. So that's another show I need to watch. But until then, my friend, we'll chat. We'll talk about, literally, we can talk about anything we want next time.
Oh, the floodgates are open. Be prepared, y'all.
Indeed, my friend. But until then, stay bodacious, my friend.
Yeah, let's stay bodacious, stay safe, and stay sexy.
You know it. Peace out, man.
Adios, deuces.